story of Veronica and King John. Oh, it was hundreds and hundreds of years ago when good King John was ruling. And he was a lovely man getting well into his 80s, but deeply concerned was the monarch, because he knew that his crown would go to either one of his sons. One of the sons he knew was as cold as ice, but brilliant. And the other was so sweet that the chickens followed him, but he could not add one and one. And so the king would wander the halls of the palace, pounding his temples at night, wondering, whatever shall I do when my time is up, and my crown is growing heavy. Then one day there was a knock at the door, and he ran down because he was a bit bored. Occasionally he answered his own door. And there was a woman with a long braid down the side of her left shoulder. And she wore a gray flannel dress with a white blouse under it. And she stood there and she looked at him very candidly. She was probably about 45. And she said, listen, Your Highness, could I stay with you for a while? What has happened to you? It's a long story, but I'll make it short. I was caring for my parents, you see. I adored them. And then they both died. And I was staying in their home as my place to stay, and it burned down, sir. And I have no job, no place to live. May I stay with you for a week and regroup and find my way? Well, certainly. I mean, I have 112 rooms. You could take your pick. It's a pleasure to meet you. But your name? Veronica. Just Veronica. He liked her. She was a pleasant person. She looked very bright. But he noticed when she came into the grand hall with her small knapsack of belongings, she looked around his grand hall critically, and she said, why do you have the fireplace on that side? Why don't you have it on the other side of your grand hall? You're wasting heat. I never thought of it. No one ever noticed. Well, I notice things like that. It interests me. Now, where will I be staying? Well, as I say, I have many rooms. You might like to just go up to the second floor. There's a room that's made rather prettily for a guest. All right, I'll be up there. But listen, once I've combed my hair and had a cup of tea, may I see your stables? Because I love horses. Oh, I'd be delighted. I'd be delighted to take you, said the old king. And so in about half an hour, she came again, her long braids shiny and well cared for, and she followed him in an underground passage to the home of the horses, the stable. And she could hear them, she could hear them calling out, and he took her in, and there were 10 horses. And she said, I bet one of your horses is named Prince. A king always has a horse named Prince. And he said, indeed, there is, Prince. Yes, over there. It's a very nice stable, Your Highness, King John. I like the floor. It's like marble. But you're wasting heat. Pardon? You're very critical, aren't you? What do you mean I'm wasting heat? Your windows, whoever built them for the horses, for the stalls, should go the other way, so that in the winter your horses will be warm, and in the summer they will be cool. Here, I'll do a little drawing on this sketch pad here and show you how it should be. Oh, Veronica, thank you. No one's ever noticed anything like this. Listen, you're good with things. Are you good with people? Why, who's bothering you? It's my little maid. She's a sweet girl. She's French, and she won't stop crying. Well, what's wrong with her? She won't tell me. I'm a man. Could you go and talk to her? She's up on the 5th floor. I'm very fond of her, but she's crying all the time. Sure, I'll go. I'm pretty good at talking to people. Let's go now. Introduce me to her. And so Veronica and King John went back into the palace. They went up to the 5th floor, and the king knocked, and this weepy, teary little girl came, the little maid, and she had frothy lace around her neck and a black velvet bow and a pretty skirt, and she was crying. And she said, what do you want, Your Highness? I'm so sad. And Veronica said, it's not him, it's me. Can you tell me what's wrong, woman to woman? And the king ran away, glad to have Veronica on board because he loved the little maid. She was so good in the house. And she'd just gotten married and she was so wretched now. Why? So Veronica sat in the chair in the maid's room and said, "So what's wrong with you?" "Oh, it's my husband." "How long have you been married?" "About 6 months." "And you're already crying? Why? What happened? What do you say to him?" "No, he won't talk to me." "Why? What'd you say to him to upset him?" I didn't do a thing. I rub his back. I make his favorite meals, but he won't talk to me. He barely looks at me." "Where does he work?" "He works for the king. He works in the stables. He's gone on duty in the last half an hour." "Oh, I'd love to go back to the stable. Come with me. Let's go. I'll talk to your husband. Come on, I have no fear of this." "Oh, thank you, because nobody knows what to do." And so tall and small, they went through the big tunnel and came out into the huge stables once again. And there was a good-looking young man, very carefully grooming a big brown horse and feeding the horse with an apple the side way that you do it, not right on. He obviously knew his horses. And Veronica called out, "Hello there, how are you?" And he said nothing. So she walked around the side of this tall man who was the only man in the stable. And she said again, "So how are you?" No response. She skittered around the side at the back to him on the other side and she said, "Listen, can you hear me?" There was no response. Then she went into the front and looked him right in the eye and said, "Hello, I am Veronica." And he shook his head. And she clapped her hands and there was no response. And she said to the little maid, "He's deaf. Your husband's totally deaf. Do you know how it could have happened?" "I think so, maybe, but I never thought of it. He was in the war. He was a cannon shooter. And he was very close to the loud noise. Yeah, well, evil takes a while to swim up the river. I think he's gone deaf too." "Oh, but then the king will have to let him go. And we will have no job here, and my poor husband, I worry." "Don't worry, he's so good with horses. He could manage even if he was blind. And he's not, so don't worry about it. I'll talk to the king." Which she did. And she stayed, and everybody she met, she helped a little. She even went down to the kitchen where the old cook was saying, "Oh my goodness, I'm stuck here stirring the pots for 60 years. Who gives a darn?" And Veronica said, "Look, you're the finest cook I've ever met. I'd like to have some more of your shepherd's pie, any old time." "Well, aren't you a nice lady? Where do you come from, the moon?" "No, probably a star." And then you know what happened. A week went by. And King John was smiling, and the little maid and her husband were well, and the cook was dancing in the kitchen, and they loved Veronica. And Veronica came to the king, and you know what she said? "I'll be out of here." And the king said, "You'll be out of here? Why? What did I do? Anything I did?" "No, but I found a job in the village and a place to live. So, I'll be going." "Oh, please," said the king. "I want to make you a proposal." "Are you kidding? You're 88 years old, and I'm only in my middle 40s. It won't work. We're not going to go there." "No, not a proposal of marriage. I propose that I adopt you." "Adopt me?" "Your Highness, I'm not sure I heard what you said. You wish to adopt me?" "I repeat it because I cannot imagine that. If you adopted me, then I might become queen." "Well, that's precisely the idea, might." "Yes, but you have 2 sons of an age that they could take over the throne. They would claw my eyes out." "Oh, no. Listen, let me tell you about my boys. One of them is brilliant and as cold as ice. And the other, the chickens like him, but he cannot add 1 and 1. Neither of them wishes to be king. They're both in love with barmaids. One, a Scottish barmaid, the other an Irish. And they can hardly wait to skip out of Britain. I know it. My dear, would you consent to one day be the queen?" She was absolutely quiet. He hadn't realized she was so tall. The cook came and peeked around a corner, and she, in her gray flannel dress, with the white blouse, held her skirt, and in complete majesty she curtsied to him, full tilt. And she said, I will be queen one day. In the meantime, tell the cook we will have a party. And that's the end of the story of Veronica and King John.